What's going on, everybody? James Hancock here. I'm back to review episode 7 of season 2 of the Orville, an episode called Deflectors. With no new episode last week, I was a little giddy to sink my teeth into this latest story, and it absolutely did not disappoint. This episode had a little bit of everything. We had some romance for Valentine's Day, we had a murder mystery, but more importantly, it featured the first episode where the character of Lieutenant Tala really started to grow on me. Also, quick question, Seth MacFarlane teased on Twitter that a special guest star was on tonight's episode. I didn't catch it. I'm assuming there's probably a famous Klingon, either from Next Generation or Deep Space Nine, dressed up as a Moclan. But like I said, I didn't see it. But apart from that little announcement by Seth MacFarlane, there hasn't really been any news related to the show in the last 2 weeks. I keep searching for some indication about what might happen to the show once Disney and Fox merge later this year. Disney's already stated that some of their edgier shows will be going to Hulu instead of Disney Plus, and I'm hoping that'll be the case with the Orville. I'm building castles in the sky right now, but just imagine how cool it would be if Disney really got behind this show and gave Seth MacFarlane not only the green light to continue the show, but also to make a few feature films as well. But until that magical day might happen, let's focus on what we have in front of us for the time being. I can't emphasize enough just how strange it is to be watching back-to-back episodes of Star Trek Discovery and the Orville on the same night. One show feels so right and the other so horribly wrong. It's almost like watching a double feature of The Empire Strikes Back and The Last Jedi back-to-back, where the perfection of one only underlines the incredible shortcomings of the other. On multiple occasions throughout this episode, I either found myself smiling or chuckling with glee, and not necessarily because anything particularly funny had been said, but rather just out of the unrestrained joy of watching a show that doesn't make me flinch in annoyance with every other line of dialogue, as is often the case with Discovery. My review for the latest episode of Discovery will go up either later tonight or tomorrow, but tonight's episode of The Orville featured an amazing twist that is in the best tradition of Star Trek, where we look at social prejudice, but from a point of view that in our own culture would be considered coming from the most unlikely of places. There are a lot of writers out there who wish to inject social commentary into their entertainment, and I think all of them need to sit up and take notes because Seth MacFarlane is showing them all how it's done. Subtlety, nuance, and the ability to subvert expectations, they're all sadly lacking from Star Trek Discovery. While the main plotline tonight, the story of Locar, was absolutely fantastic, the B plotline was particularly good as well. Kelly breaks up with Cassius, and we see in several scenes just how much Ed and Kelly still truly love each other. There's this great scene where several crew members are sitting around talking about Isaac's sexual expertise when Tala calls attention to just how natural Ed and Kelly appear to be when they're spending time together. Ed is pulling the classic move of being the sympathetic friend, willing to listen to all of Kelly's breakup drama. But this more lighthearted B storyline served as a perfect counterpoint to the story of Locar, which sadly goes to very upsetting territory. The main story deals with Locar, a brilliant Moclan engineer. He's come aboard the Orville to upgrade its deflectors. He's successful, and in the subsequent test with the Moclan ship, Malloy has this great hero moment showing off his evasive maneuver skills until finally Kelly has to tell him to stop showing off so they can actually perform the test. But Malloy with his evasive maneuvers, it's almost like becomes Scotty saving the ship back in the classic Star Trek, where I feel like every few episodes, and hopefully if they ever get to make some movies, they will always need to give Malloy a chance to shine as one of the best pilots in the galaxy. But as we soon learn, Locar has a history with Bortus, and they were a couple of years back. Bortus tries his best to avoid Locar, and we also see that Locar and Tala are having some interesting interactions. Eventually, he confesses that he's interested in her romantically, something that is absolutely 100% forbidden in his own culture. Back home, he would be imprisoned, and his family would be horribly shamed. What follows is a date in the simulation room, and it seems like, particularly in Season 2, all the magic and all the romance happens in the simulation room, which makes total sense. But they go on a date in New York in 1945, and I live in New York, and let's just say their visit to New York looks identical to any backlot of any movie studio in LA, but we'll give it a pass because what follows is so much fun. It's incredible how a sci-fi comedy show has become one of the most romantic shows on television, but with the last episode, A Happy Refrain, and now this scene, Seth MacFarlane has proven himself to be a master of romantic comedy as well. Tala teaches Locar how to dance, and they have a nice kiss before she's called away by Kelly to deal with this giant flower in her room, which is all an effort by Cassius to try to win her back. I have to admit that the flower bit was the only part of this episode that didn't quite work for me. At any rate, once Tala's gone, Clyden enters the simulation and confronts Locar about knowing who he is, but the show quickly cut to commercial. Then when the show came back, we were led to believe that Locar had been murdered and that the murderer's identity was encrypted. All hell breaks loose with the Moclan captain on the other ship when Tala mentions the fact that Locar was interested in women. and the culture clash gets pretty ugly pretty quickly. Tala and Bortus also have it out. He calls her a selfish fool, but she counters with the fact that he should be more understanding given what happened to his daughter, and that just makes Bortus fly into a rage. But the episode picked up some serious speed when Isaac and Lamar decrypt the footage of the murder. Quick side note, as much as I believe Lamar and Malloy are the best team on the show, Lamar and Isaac are pretty great as well. But with all the evidence pointing to Clyden as a killer, Tala continues to search for Locar, suspecting that he went into hiding to save his family from being shamed. Then in my favorite scene of the episode, Tala makes his offhand comment about this being the craziest thing that's ever happened on the ship, and Malloy and Lamar basically bring her up to speed real quick with a recap of all the crazy, weird, insane shit that's happened in season 1 and 2, and the scene was just brilliant because in just a few quick seconds, this show reminded us of all the great memories and all the great episodes and all the great continuity that this show has established in such a short period of time. So eventually Tala finds Locar and she asks him to request asylum on the ship. With tears in his eyes, he tells her that he's going to return home to face his people, and I have to say I was genuinely moved by the scene. Emotionally, we get some great payback when Clyden thanks Tala for clearing his name. She tells him to avoid her from now on and that his own prejudices have ruined a man's life when he did absolutely nothing wrong. As far as she's concerned, Clyden can go straight to hell. And I felt like I was watching a classic episode of The Next Generation or Deep Space Nine. It was the perfect ending to the episode, and I'm now officially a massive fan of Tala. I will always miss Alara Katan, but Tala has rapidly become an incredible addition to the crew of the Orville. In addition to the fantastic story, this episode had so much more to enjoy. There's a great little throwaway scene involving cupcakes that just had me howling, and the show continues to do a superb job of celebrating Seth MacFarlane's favorite music. We heard Benny Goodman's version of Body and Soul, a tune that I particularly love, and we saw the Frank Sinatra Gene Kelly movie Anchors Away on the marquee in New York. And the episode closed with this really sad, melancholy montage, all to the tune of There'll Be a Bluebird Over the White Cliffs of Dover. I think it's safe to say there's never been a sci-fi show or a comedy show that so successfully stirs together so many different ingredients in such a pleasing, satisfying way. So, time to wrap this up. Obviously, I love the episode. I'm going to cry my eyes out when the season ends, but hopefully sometime between now and then, we'll get some positive news about the future of the show. But I hope you enjoyed my little review of the episode. If you did, please consider subscribing to my channel. And if you want to talk, you can find me on Twitter at Colbrax. There's a link in the description below. But I can't thank you enough for watching the video. I appreciate the support. But more importantly, as always, onwards and upwards.